We are entering a time in human history right now where uncertainty is amplified. And there are levels of, let's just call it competing agendas that are brushing up against each other. And I don't want to get into, the philosophical arguments of good and bad and light and dark and blah, blah, blah. Well, whatever it is. Doesn't matter which side of whatever fence you sit on, whenever you have the acceleration that we have right now where people's comfort zones are being stretched past their norms, your ability to handle that gracefully versus in a panic or in a disempowered way is going to determine not only the quality of your current emotional state, which is the quality of your life, but the quality of the future direction of your emotional state, which is the rest of your life. So right now, the ability to handle uncertainty gracefully is probably the biggest skill.
Welcome to the Dr. Espen podcast. I am Espen. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing someone that's got great experience in both personal and professional development. This is Peter Sage, a serial entrepreneur, author, master trainer, international educator, philosopher, and public speaker, particularly specializing in human behavior, personal development, and the psychology. I love this, the psychology of success. He's started and founded over 20 companies now. He's worked with the Energy Fitness Group, Worldwide Health Corporation, and he's worked across a whole range of different industries. What I found interesting also is specifically how many different industries and niches Peter has been able to help. And this will be, I think, quite relevant for you if you want to develop yourself personally, of course, but also if you're really interested in how to be a successful entrepreneur. Peter has had the privilege of being on stage with various different people from Kofi Annan, Richard Branson, former US President Bill Clinton, including governments, members of royalty, Google and NASA, some of the biggest companies in the world. So today we're going to talk about how to overcome adversity, how to grow, and how to take our life and potential entrepreneurship to the next level. So Peter Sage, welcome, buddy. How are you doing?
Dr. Espen, what a pleasure. Really happy to be here. And looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, man. Joining us all the way from the Canary Islands. What a beautiful place.
Privileged to be here. It's, I asked myself a question: if you're lucky enough to be living in a time in human history where you can choose where you want to live, where would it be? And this is where I've ended up.
Oh, I love that. Reminds me of something that Dr. John DeMartini says: the world is my home and each country is just another room in the house. We can go wherever we want. Lovely.
Love
okay.
John.
Let's get straight into it, buddy. I know you've got a lot of experience in these fields. I want to ask, firstly, starting with ourselves, because we know that if we are to create businesses, legacies of impact, it has to start with ourselves because we are that common denominator. What do you think is the biggest problem that people face right now that they don't know how to deal with?
The ability to handle uncertainty. We are entering a time in human history right now where uncertainty is amplified. And there are levels of, let's just call it competing agendas that are brushing up against each other. And I don't want to get into, the philosophical arguments of good and bad and light and dark and blah, blah, blah. Well, whatever it is. Doesn't matter which side of whatever fence you sit on, whenever you have the acceleration that we have right now where people's comfort zones are being stretched past their norms, your ability to handle that gracefully versus in a panic or in a disempowered way is going to determine not only the quality of your current emotional state, which is the quality of your life, but the quality of the future direction of your emotional state, which is the rest of your life. So right now, the ability to handle uncertainty gracefully is probably the biggest skill, because it is a skill, it's not innate. Right, that we can actually deal with. The ability to handle uncertainty is the defining characteristic. It will literally determine the quality and direction of where people go from here. From there, you can add on to that the different levels of skills, the different levels of expertise, the different levels of path that is universally aligned with your truth or what have you. But without that ability to handle uncertainty, it doesn't matter which path you take, you're always going to be on shaky legs.
Yeah. I love that. I often say that conscious leaders lean into discomfort because that's where we grow and that's where we get to excel. I think this is a really important point. So if we understand that we're living in a world that is uncertain and probably will be more uncertain moving forward, and our ability to master our lives and, master entrepreneurship then comes to this balance of how do we master or at least face uncertainty? What would be some of the steps? If someone's going, okay, I get it, I know that I need to grow in these areas, what are some of the steps that they would take to be able to do that?
The first thing is to separate your role in the movie that you're in. What do I mean by that? You star in the movie of your life. And when you take ownership of that, bearing in mind that I know that to be a fact because you're the only person that's in every single scene of your movie, most people give up their power and they're reacting as if they were an unpaid extra in some big budget disaster movie, which is constantly being programmed to them most of the time. I mean, it's a psychological fact that as human beings, we are programmable by design. Nobody's not programmable. Otherwise, kids would never be able to learn from their parents, right? Yeah, we have mirror neurons growing up for a reason. So if you look at almost any US presidential campaign, historically, the person that has won is the person that has spent the most money on getting more images of themselves in front of the public. What does that tell you? It tells you that policy has nothing to do with it. It tells you that programming has everything to do with it. So if you are turning on information in your movie that you didn't consciously create or you didn't consciously choose, you are being programmed by somebody else's movie script. And therefore, you can only ever be a film extra in somebody else's movie. So the second you decide, you know something, I'm done. Turn off the damn news. If you actually think it's the news, you're in Disneyland. It's got nothing to do with the news.
Yeah, agreed.
It's got everything to do with, unconscious programming to keep you scared and disempowered. And if you haven't figured that out yet, there's not a lot else we can do on this podcast that's going to help you. So if you say, okay, first step to handling uncertainty is to realize I am in total control of creating my movie. If you're a film extra in somebody else's, you got zero control of the script. You're trying to force everything. You're trying to cross your fingers or everything. And most of the time you end up as victim or you get frustrated because it's not going your way. So the first step to handling uncertainty is to realize that you have absolute control over your role in your movie. And if you are worried about what other people think, what I call driven by the good opinion of other people, goop, if you are not comfortable not being liked, you are going to essentially be the puppet on everybody else's string, dancing to the tune of, I need external validation. I need to crave approval. I need to avoid rejection. I need to please everybody. I need to suffer the illusion of thinking I need to be a perfectionist when there is no such thing. Perfectionism doesn't exist. Right? If you want perfectionism's real name, I'll give it to you. It's called scared of screwing upism. And when you actually realize that, right, you can start to see how much power most people give away.
Yeah.
See, when you walk into a room and you realize, and it depends how deep and how fast you want to get here, but you've got a pretty high conscious audience.
Yes.
That we understand that consciousness is primary. In other words, the brain doesn't interpret reality. That's an outdated Newtonian falsehood that is glued into a materialistic, ancient paradigm that has been disproven in quantum physics for 100 years.
Exactly.
Instead, your brain does not interpret reality. It doesn't process reality. It generates reality. Your reality. And the easiest way, and Einstein couldn't get this because he didn't have the metaphors that average kids in first grade now completely understand just because of where society is. So we get virtual realities. We understand that if we play a 3-player multiplayer game online, people understand that. They have a reference for it. I don't play online games, but I understand how they work. So let's just say that you're I'm playing, and let's say Jane is playing as well, and we meet together in this online game, in this virtual world. Well, what I'm seeing on my screen is not what you're seeing. Why? Because I'm seeing you and Jane. But Jane's not seeing you and Jane. Jane's seeing you and me. You're not seeing you and me. You're seeing me and Jane. Because that's how the data stream is being rendered into your screen. Everybody's cool with that. Now, yeah, that's not a stretch of imagination to understand. But when we realize that this holographic, 3-4D computer game that we are in operates the same way, our brain is generating the data stream that is being given uniquely to you and I. So I am in charge of my data, which means when I walk into a room, when I go and look at a Ferrari parked on the street, who owns that data?
You do.
I do.
I do.
Because it's my data. It's being rendered to me. Now, this is a paradigm shift, but it's empowering if you get it. So rather than sit there thinking, oh my God, I wish I could afford that. Oh, wow, I'm so unlucky. They're so lucky. Oh my God, I'll never get a Ferrari. Instead, when you take ownership of everything in your experience because it's being rendered uniquely for you, you get a different sense of empowerment. Now, you may not have the ability to go sit in that car, turn the keys on, but that data belongs to you, that stream, that imagery. Because there is no out there, to quote the great John Wheeler. So when you can get a great example of this, Rihanna. There are approximately 4 billion women on this planet. Out of those 4 billion, Rihanna doesn't sing and dance or write music the best out of 4 billion. So why is she the world's first female self-made billionaire in that industry? Pretty simple. When she walks into a room, she doesn't own the room, she owns the building. When she walks down the street, she doesn't own the street, she owns the city. There is an energy, there is an ownership, I'm starring in my movie and I don't give a damn what the film extras judge me for, because why should I when I'm the star? Now, not from arrogance, from empowerment. Yeah, Mother Teresa had the same energy. There was a lot more projection via compassion because that was her movie. But there was still the same of ownership. You tell Mother Teresa it can't be done, her energy is, watch me. Right? There is an ownership power there. And when you get that, the ability to handle uncertainty diminishes. Now we have variety that you used to call uncertainty.
No.
And now we're getting somewhere.
Yes. Oh man, dropping the bombs, Peter. You've got quantum physics in there. You've got spirituality, consciousness in there. You've got the 6 human needs in there. You've got psychology in there. What I love the most here is the idea of radical self-expression. Non-apologetic, being me. Because we are the creators of our lives. As you see, you paraphrase, but we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are, yet we are taking in lower frequency information, creating patterns and programs because we believe we have to, and then we're not even being ourselves. I love the analogy of being that, not the main actor, but that person that steps into the movie and making a conscious shift into being the star of your life. This is, and you guys listen to that again if you didn't get the dimensional stuff, because what's really happening here in terms of the conversation around the matrix or being in a hologram pertains specifically not just to quantum physics and to understanding consciousness, but to how to make the leap from being a passenger to being the driver of your life. Okay, Peter, so now we've got that in our minds, and now we want to, let's say that we've made a conscious decision. I will now be the main actor in my life. I will write the script, I will play it out, but I will do it from a place of really fully being me. I'm okay to go from uncertainty to variety because I understand that stretch and that I'm going to upset some people, and that's lovely and or love and compassion, or maybe challenging. What do we do then? Would we write the script first, would we take the necessary actions, there will be change to relationships. There will be change to so many things. What do you find with your clients? And I know you've worked with a lot of high-level clients. What are some of the shifts that you've guided them through in terms of, hey, I get it, I'm in, what do I do now?
First thing is to set yourself up to win. That's a big concept that I teach, that most people that are still trained or conditioned to be reactive don't really take charge of. When I say set yourself up to win, stop the negative programming. Absolutely. I mean, the first thing, as I said, turn off the damn news. Let me give you a quick analogy of how this works. People say, I need to know what's going on in the world. No, you don't. You need to know what's going on in your world. Anything other than that, you are now at effect, not at cause. But let's go back to our little online computer game. Let's say we go to, and I'm sure they exist, these online computer game conventions. And imagine you're in kind of a hall, sports hall that's been set up. So you've got 500 desks all in rows. Right? You got 10 rows of 50 desks and terminals where everyone jumps in and they start this online computer game-a-thon. Right? You can picture the scene. And again, I'm showing my complete inexperience of game-a-thon stuff here, but let's just say go back to old school. And I remember Jet Set Willie and Monty Mole and other things people have no clue about and from not my generation. But let's say you have 3 lives. We're kind of familiar with that in the game. And you start your game and you're on the quest, you're on the vision quest, you've got to go get the crystal or whatever it may be. And you're busy working through the levels. And all of a sudden, one of the umpires that's walking up and down these lines of rows of desks comes up and taps you on the shoulder. Says, hey, stop what you're doing. I need to tell you something. You go, what? Says, that person 3 rows down on the right just got eaten by a dragon. You're like, okay. No, feel upset. Well, I'm playing my game. Yeah, but you don't understand. See that person, right? 4 rows down on the left, they just lost a life. See that person 3 people over to your right, they just lost half their power in a battle. It's like, whoa, stop. I'm concentrating on being the best that I can be in my game. Yes, I can have compassion for other players, but if I get emotionally vested in what I think is everybody else's drama, what's going to happen to my game? Now, in that scenario, it becomes easy to understand. But that's exactly what happens when you turn on the news. You've basically got somebody who's decided that they want to tap you on the shoulder and tell you all the crap that they want you to focus on that's going on in other people's movies, over-sensationalized so you can feel bad. Why? So that you don't become the best version of you in your game, period. Right? So first things first, set yourself up to win. Now, you may say, hey, listen, I live with one of those umpires, all right? My husband's a dream stealer. My brother-in-law is the most negative person I've ever... You have to understand that, love your family, choose your friends.
I like that.
If you've got people in your life that are constantly negative, you've got to separate energetically the role. You're no longer their partner. You're almost their energetic parent. See, if a parent looks at a 3-year-old and the 3-year-old's upset because, they dropped one of their sweets down the drain by mistake, the parent doesn't go into a tailspin. Right? They have compassion. They understand. Right? Or if the 3-year-old's upset because, they think the moon's made of cheese and their best friend told them it was, and they heard somebody say it wasn't, and now they're in an argument, you don't get emotionally vested. You see them for where they're at. Because there's a huge difference between physical maturity and emotional maturity. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there's a lot of emotional teenagers or less running around some pretty old bodies.
Yeah.
So first things first, set yourself up to win. Program yourself intentionally. I was up 4-something o'clock this morning, as I normally am, in my meditation room for 2 hours. In the first hour, I'm programming myself.
Yeah.
I am reading inspirational books. I am studying inspirational text. I am going over and listening to stuff that reinforces my model of the world, not destroys it. The last time I read a newspaper, I went and bought a newspaper to read over 2 decades ago. Why? I figured out it's all the same news. It just keeps happening to different people, right? And that doesn't serve me in my movie. So 1, set yourself up to win. The second thing, important point to your question, do you write your own script? Or do you take action. You need to understand that when you start taking charge of the role in your movie, you are not the actor, director, producer, supporting cast, CGI expert, lighting, grip. You have an entire team, what I call your non-physical support team, in play. And if you are a lone wolf, it's like, hey, listen, I don't want to be a victim, I want to be an achiever. And you go out and wrestle the world to the ground, it's going to fight. You grab the world by the throat, it resists. Just like you and I would resist if you grab us by the throat. When you realize that you're actually in partnership with the universe, and the universe wants you to succeed, just like a coach wants you to succeed. A director of the movie wants you to succeed. You're the talent. So you are co-creating. But you don't have to have the heavy lifting. Your job is to choose the movie you want, the genre you want. Feel the upcoming scenes, but how they get set up will be delivered to you through synchronicities, meetings, opportunities, insights, intuition, gut feel. Your job is to tune into that and work with the non-physical director, work with your non-physical acting coach in order to do your part, which is you got to show up on set and act the scene. Yeah, if you get a strong hit, your intuition says, yeah, I should go down there, and you don't listen because you're addicted to certainty, or you don't know if it'll work or not, or you haven't learned how to interpret internal communication, then yeah, it's like the sat-nav. It's like GPS. You've got to program in a destination. At that point, magic happens. Why? Because there is a bunch of orbiting satellites traveling at 12,500 miles an hour, communicating at the speed of light, 186,286.4 miles per second, instantaneously in language you don't understand, called binary, that triangulates positions, calculates the speed of moving traffic all around you based on people's smartphone locations, reinterprets that through an algorithm based upon your preferences of shortest or fastest distance, and then delivers that to you through an interface that pops up on your screen that says, take the next turn in 90 feet on the left. Now, you don't worry about any of the stuff that came before that instruction. So why worry about how the universe delivers instructions? Your job is to act on the instruction. You know something? If you miss the turn, it's okay. As long as your destination has a level of certainty attached to it, it'll reroute in the most efficient way possible. Oh, what if I get the decision wrong? It'll reroute. The only decision you can't undo is having children. Everything else is pretty much on point. Should I get this job or that job? Tune in. What if it's wrong? Reroute. Should I marry this person or that person? Tune in. What if I get it wrong? Divorce. I mean, it's like, and you never really have enough data to make decisions, which is why you have to go on gut feel. Don't make it life or death. Right? So, set yourself up to win. Learn how to work in partnership with the universe, which will only deliver intel to you if you are congruent that you're starring in your movie. See, the passengers in the car don't get to program the sat-nav, and they don't get to be affected by what comes up on screen. The driver does. And at that point, you're in the game.
I think a moment just to pause is very appropriate. I just want to take this moment to speak quickly to the listeners and viewers. Just kind of for you to tune in right now. What are you feeling right now? Does this feel true for you? And if so, where are you going? This is a very pertinent question. If you could achieve anything you wanted, where would you go? You know what I saw, Peter? I had a visual when you were explaining the different levels of the video game. I think this is such a great analogy. And by the way, you're really great with analogies. I think this is a wonderful way to teach. As you go up the levels and you meet this person, a metaphor for life, you go through life, you meet this person, you turn on the news, not that you do, but if you do, and there's like today's the worst day ever, it's been even worse than yesterday, whatever it might be. You meet a person that's negative, you hear something that may not be accurate. That symbolizes that person at that level saying, hey, guess what? 2 levels up, 2 levels down, whatever, someone got eaten alive. And what I saw was, yes, in their game. But that might not be the case in your game. Unless you listen to that and create, because we are creators, you create that in your game. So it just went to really double down on what you said before. You're creating that reality. But if you're focusing on your reality, you're the captain, you're the driver, and the other guys are passengers, then you're still going to your destination, even though there is noise. So I just got that came through then. It's really, really interesting because I love the analogy of actually creating that. And gosh, if you guys sense what's happening here is that once the mental construct is created, once you know what you want to create, the universe is the director. Isn't that just a breath of fresh air to consider, to know that?
Takes the pressure off.
100% takes all the pressure off. And now you can be the actor and do the scene and do the scene fully with all of you and watch what is co-created. Wonderful analogy. Okay, how do we take such concepts and similar concepts and then, okay, I get it, in my life, what are some steps in terms of entrepreneurship? I mean, if this is the case, what could we do then in terms of business, legacy, and impact?
3 steps. The first is to get a vision that lights you up. And there's something to be mindful here because most people's visions, goals, dreams they say they want are not visions, goals, or dreams that light them up. They're visions, goals, or dreams that they think they should have in order to avoid emotions of discomfort or feelings that are not good enough or living up to the expectations of what they think society should put on them. This is a great one for the ladies out there because for most women, in my experience, and yes, I am getting gender biased here, but it's stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason, because it lends itself to violence. So if you get hooked up on that, go look in the mirror. But try to tune into the point I'm making here, and I think a lot of the ladies would appreciate this. Society has superimposed upon the female generations certain levels of expectations that lead to unfulfillment. What do I mean by that? Most women today were taught, and I'm talking to women predominantly right now in their late 40s, 50s, etc. They were taught that you've got to be somewhat independent. In other words, you've got to get education so you don't rely on a man, because that'd be bad. Because we learned that in the 50s where women were trapped in marriages that were unloving because of lack of economic freedom. Luckily, we're past that. But if you grew up with a mother or somebody who had influence in the 50s, 60s, even 70s, they will teach their daughters never rely on a man from their painful experience, which means that you've got to get education. Then, once you've got education, you're free to get a good man. Because now you haven't got the pressure or you're not tied to a financial ball and chain. But get a good man, good husband, and then you can have children. And then your role, your expectation is to be a good enough mother so that your kids grow up, go to college, and so you spend the next 20 years in that expectation. And what happens when you're in late 40s, the kids fly the nest, and now you're like, okay, now what? And society says, oh, we've got nothing left for you. We're back to the other generation to teach them what to do. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. But I've spent my whole life serving others and living up to somebody else's expectation. And now I finally have time for myself. And you're saying that you're out of ideas. Forget it. We're off talking to the same people to follow the path you just followed. All right? And it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. Where's me? Where am I? And you find this identity crisis a lot of the time. And that's why a lot of the women at that level go into some sort of service-based business, like a coach, or they're drawn to nursing or service or something because they've spent their whole life being taught to nurture, which is great. Beautiful quality. Only a lot of them have been taught to nurture at the expense of not nurturing themselves. So, when it comes to what do we do? What are the steps? Get a vision, but that vision has to be what lights you up for your truth. Men are another classic example when it comes to, I need to get significance in order to get connection. if I'm significant enough and I achieve enough and I drive a good enough car and I have enough money in the bank, then people will respect and love me. Total crap.
I used to be like that.
Right? So, yeah, it's a phase most people have to go through. So certainly guys, I certainly did in my 20s, right? And if we say get your vision that lights you up, but there's a challenge here. That one of the caveats is this: the vision should be something that you likely can't complete in this lifetime. Ooh. Now, why is that important? It takes the pressure off. It's something that you're passionate about, and it becomes a cause greater than you. Now, you have a mission just like that, which is raising global consciousness. Mine is the same. The level that I want to impact couldn't be done by me in my lifetime. It doesn't stop me walking that path. When you look at the great cathedrals of Europe that took 400 years to build, imagine generations of generations where your great-grandkids won't even see it finished. Why do you keep showing up and carrying stones every day? Because you believe in something that's going to be greater than you. That's the vision I'm talking about. So step one, get a vision, not driven by your insecurities, not driven by your need to prove something, not driven by your avoidance of scarcity, but something that you can stand for, that allows you to be proud in the storm. Phase two is to get what we would call a definite chief aim. What is something in the next 1 to 3 years that would be a subset of that vision that is now relevant to you, that you can see as a goal 1 to 3 years out? And I use 1 to 3 years because most people underestimate what they can do in 3 years. They overestimate what they can do in a year, but 1 to 3 years, 3 years is about a sweet spot. If it's longer than 3 years, it tends to be too far in the future to be emotionally vested. But I've done some crazy things. One of the races I ran was the Marathon des Sahara, which is 20 years ago, with the ultra marathon across the Sahara. Now you're running nearly 300 kilometers in the desert, and you couldn't focus on the finish line. It was too far away in your mind. You get demoralized. But you could focus on the next checkpoint, 20 kilometers away. I can make that. That's in the headlines. Your DCA, your definite chief aim, is your 20 kilometer checkpoint in the ultra marathon. And then once you have that, step 3, simple. What is the next move that I need to make that would take me closer to that checkpoint? Those 3 things, don't complicate it. Without either one of those 3, you've got rungs missing on the ladder, or it's leaning against the wrong wall.
I see. And that makes a lot of sense. And then every time you've succeeded in that 20 kilometer, AKA the next step in the 3rd point, you'd obviously set the next point, reconfigure where you're going and make sure that you're on the right track.
Yeah, because life's constantly evolving. The river of life does what every river does, which is winds. There are no straight lines in nature. People get frustrated because they want life to be a canal. But if you look at a canal, there's no life in a canal. It's boring. And the other psychological shift that people need to make if they really want to embrace the joy of acting in their own movie is to understand that emotional maturity begins when you realize life is not a comfort-centric experience. No generation you could point to in the last 200,000 years has been under the illusion that life is a comfort-centric experience. No, they realize one thing, that if this shift today, it'll do more than any other thing you could listen to on this podcast. When you realize that life is a growth-centric experience, you embrace that at your core. Now you don't see the workouts in the gym as some psychopath trying to make you do push-ups until you throw up. Now you approach it because you're the Olympic athletes that's training for gold. You want that muscle soreness. You want that sweat. Not every day is a toughest workout, but we're going to need workouts if we want to get that medal. Let's go get it. And you embrace that. You sail the bends in the river rather than try to fight the current.
And water always ends up at its destination, no matter if it's in the sky, in the forest, in the rivers, and always ends up in the oceans. I'm interested in this concept that you just brought up then in terms of choosing that and then moving forward with that. And then on the other side, what about those who don't want to do grand things in the world? What about those who just want to be a happy mom, a happy dad, whatever? Would you say that the steps are the same, but the goal then, or the dream is different? It'll be unique, of course.
Predominantly through the lens of entrepreneurship there, for example, right? Because in entrepreneurs, you are going to encounter way more resistance, uncertainty, and workouts in the gym than if you just want to be, I'm on now. You're going to have your own version of being the best mom. You can have your own challenges, with all of the disowned parts that your kids are going to throw up at you. Okay? So, it's not as if one path is better or worse. Not at all. We're not diminishing that. Without good moms, there'd be no decent entrepreneurs, I promise you. Right? Mm-hmm. But if you start to say, no, what is my version? If I don't want to go play the empire game, the leaving a legacy game, what is my legacy? Well, here's a reframe that I teach a lot of my students that is a real game changer. When we think traditionally of leaving a legacy, the stereotypical imposition is, I need to build a school in Africa. I need to create a movement after my name. I need to donate $10 million to the library and have it, my name on the, whatever it is. No, that's ego. That's you thinking that you have to go do something grandiose in order to justify your significance on the planet. No. Your legacy is measured very differently. And let's take Nelson Mandela as an example. Nelson Mandela didn't build any schools. But because of who he was, many schools got built. Mm-hmm. Your legacy is not what you do. Your legacy is who you become. This is your movie. Your legacy is when you stand up and look back at the final scene of your movie, which we will all have, before we pick up another script and go act some more. Are you able to turn around and say, boom, you know something? That was a movie I would pay to watch again. That's your legacy.
Beautiful. Watching, listening now, I would like to propose a challenge. The first challenge is that you decide what you want in your life now. As in, don't know the details, you just decide that you are going to live your best life. Once you've made that decision, I would challenge you and say, go back when you're available, when you have time, if you're not driving or doing whatever you're doing, if you're listening to this. If you have a moment now, do it right now. Sit down, go back, and listen to this again and write down each step. Write yourself a list of deciding what that looks like and see if following Peter's protocol is something that could be useful for you. I feel like this is a really great blueprint for designing the life of your dreams. And it brings up something, I remember Tony Robbins, I think it was said years ago, the biggest problem people have is thinking that they shouldn't have any. Reframing the mindset from, this is not supposed to be a super comfortable experience. This is supposed to be, and has to be, even if you don't want it to be, a growth experience. What does that mean? This is a complete mindset shift. Write that down, stick it on a Post-it note, remind yourself plastically until that has landed. I think that is a brilliant shift. Okay, so now we've got the same for the stay-at-home mum and dad. You know, the old saying, chop wood, carry water, just living a simple, humble life, and a world-class, life-changing entrepreneur. We've redefined legacy to something that everyone can relate to. Okay? It doesn't have to be something that you leave physically behind, but it's something that is you. Okay, now let's take this to the next level. Once we're on this journey and we're developing ourselves and again, recreating or peeling back the falsehood and becoming us, once we do that, I've noticed, Peter, and I love your take on this. Let's take it to that quantum level. I've realized that when our students, including me and my loved ones, when we live our truth, when we live a life in alignment with our highest values, when we speak our truth, when a yes is a yes and a no is a no, when we really give ourselves permission, and I'm the first to say it took me a lot of years to really be me and fall in love with me from a place of I actually love and care about me, not from a place of ego, as you've mentioned. Once we've taken those steps, and we walk in that path. You mentioned the universe becomes the director. And I love the analogy. I say it's the spiral of synchronicities. When you're living a life aligned with your soul, your higher self, your spiritual essence, your truth, the universe transpires. It gives you wind under your wings. It in effect creates a whole sequence of beautiful synchronicities in your life. What are some of the things that you've observed when it comes to a person, say, living in alignment, living from a place of love and joy and authenticity? And then what happens in terms of the quantum field assisting the evolution of that movie?
It's often said that all a teacher wants is a willing student. If you look at the best directors, they want to work with talent that wants to work. And not some diva on set that's demanding that, because they think they're a star, they should get X, Y, and Z. The universe is the same way. If you take ownership, authorship of your own power from a place of wanting to create for the greater good, not for your ego, not playing the accumulation game, not like I'm better than you, the universe aligns with that because that's why it's here. Ultimately, why are we here? Well, let me give you my take on this. We can learn a lot from looking at the physical world as to some of the secrets of the non-physical world. Why? It's a fractal expression. You can learn a lot having never seen the parents by looking at the children. If the children is Caucasian, blonde hair and blue eyes, chances are the parents are not Eastern Caribbean. It's nature leaves clues. If you see a lion cub, we know that its parents aren't llamas, right? You can tell a lot about the parents by looking at the child in terms of also characteristics, right? Not just physical, but non-physical. Now, when we realize that the wave gives birth to the particle, the particle does not give birth to the wave.
Exactly. Huge point.
Physical word is a subset of something more fundamental. Let's call it the superset, which is non-physical matter reality. Again, we've got many different words we can fight over, not interested. But let's just play with me on the fact you have a superset and a subset. Non-physical superset gives birth to physical subset.
Cause and effect.
The wave condenses and collapses the waveform into matter, not the other way around. Einstein said the sole governing agency of the particle is the field. He didn't say the sole governing agency of the field is the particle. Point made. So, if we look at that and say, okay, what are some of the characteristics that we can take from looking at the superset by observing the subset? Let's go back to evolution. We have fairly well documented and observed 400 plus million years of fossil records. We have a pretty good idea of the journey of life and matter as it evolved up to present day. We've got a lot of people spend a lot of time, effort, and money studying stuff most people don't want to study in order to draw some pretty strong conclusions. Let's call it that. And what we've noticed is that evolution is on a path. It's slow, but it's relentless. And that path is to create versions of life that are ever more complex. So you go back 400 million years ago, you take an amoeba, a single-celled organism. You fast forward 400 million years to modern-day man/woman, and the average body contains 50 trillion different cells. Now you take 50 trillion amoebas in a pool of primordial soup, and you add one fuel source, which back then was most likely carbon dioxide. Well, let's say you add one fuel source. What are you going to get? 50 trillion amoebas, one food source. I'll tell you what you're going to get. You're going to get war. Take 50 million dogs or 50 trillion dogs and one bone, right? It's not going to be pretty. So if you fast forward to humanity, we have 50 trillion cells, but they're not individual amoebas now. They're working in harmony for one sole purpose, which means if You go and munch down your veggie burger or your ribeye, depending on which side of the food chain you want to be. Now you don't have 50 trillion cells after one bone. Mm-hmm. You have an incredible example of cooperation, which is what is the key to the evolutionary journey.
Yeah.
Because 50 individual cells, competition, 50 trillion cells, cooperation. So in order for evolution to work, in order for life to evolve, in order for the reason us to serve why we are here, we have to lean more towards cooperation and less towards competition. Another way of saying that is more towards love and less towards fear. Mm-hmm. So why are we here? We are here to choose because we have free will. It's part of what makes the game work so that we can learn. We're here to choose love over fear in ever more challenging circumstances. That is the nature of the purpose of life from everything I've learned in the last 35 years of studying what I study. You're here to learn how to love. And when I see people that walk that path, their life unfolds with more synchronicities because the universe aligns with them because you're now walking in purpose. If you walk on the opposite side, it's all about me. What can I get? My ego, my insecurity. Let's play chasing them all at the expense of others or what have you, or self-centeredness. Life doesn't align with you. You're fighting the current, and every time you take a breath, you backslide. So rather than try to spend your energy fighting the current, as most people in achiever mode that are trying to prove to the world they're good enough do, spend your energy working in relation with the current by positioning yourself better in the current. Learn how to be a sailor. Sail the bends of life. They're there for a reason. Because if you know, when I say know, I don't mean believe. I don't mean hope. I don't mean guess. I don't mean only on a good day when you're in the mood. What about every cell of your body knows you're in the right river? How do you know you're in the right river? You have a vision that lights you up, and no one's talking you out of it. And you can't see how to get there, which is why they try to talk you out of it. You don't care because it feels right. So you know you're in the right river. If you know you're in the right river, do you care if it bends left or right? Of course not. You learn how to sail. Now, if you're an achiever on your own and you haven't got the universe working with you, you want a straight line. So what happens? The river bends and you get a spade and you start trying to dig a channel through the bank of the river because you've been taught that you've got to go after your goals and fight and have desire and persistence and work your ass off and 10x this and blah, 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 blah. Great. Give me a shout when you burn out and I'll show you how to sail, not fight the current.
And of course, because we're creating what we are, as I say, we don't manifest what we want, we manifest what we are vibrationally. In this instance, then, when we're hustling and grinding, and you mentioned achiever mode, spiral dynamics, striver, driver, achiever, that hustle mode, the vibration behind that is normally that of fear, not of love, or, somewhat of that nature. So then, of course, we're creating what we don't want. And I think this is a great reminder also that it can be the other way, and love truly is not the answer, but it's who we are. And it's also by universal law. If we can live in alignment with universal law, we can have this amazing momentum and indeed swim downstream and sail rather than push our way through it. This has been incredible, buddy. I want to talk. I have one final question that I ask all the people that I'm blessed to interview, and I'll ask you in a moment. But before we do, I have got even myself for this tremendous value. I can only imagine what our listeners and viewers have got from this so far. And even moreover, if you do give yourself, I would say, permission and the gift to sit down and listen to this again and write it out, man, you've got a blueprint here that is potentially, it's not even potentially, it is potentially, because if you don't do anything about it, it could be a waste of time. But if you act on it and write this out, this could be the life of your dreams. Who knows? The business of your dreams. I want to talk about Inside Track because you've put so much of your work, Peter, into this book. And I love books. I collect books. And when I get a book, I just flick through it and I read, and then it sticks. And like you, I'm a bit in flow and I go to it. But I know if someone spent a lot of time putting together so much of their wisdom in one place, I want to get a hold of it. So tell us just quickly about the book Inside Track. What's in there? What can people expect?
It's a very unique book, as I'm sure you're aware. It was never written as a book. It's actually the collection of 11 private letters that I wrote to my senior students when I was going through what most people thought at the time was a pretty traumatic experience, what I was convinced at the time was one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given, which was being sentenced to 6 months in one of the most violent prisons in the UK for contempt of court as a civil prisoner. Never been arrested, never been accused of a crime, never been found guilty, no criminal record. But due to arguing a business deal with a company that had hundreds of millions of dollars more to spend on legals than I ever would, I learned a lot about how the legal system went. And as a result of that, I ended up going to prison unsegregated. I was treated as any other normal prisoner. And I decided to use it as an amazing opportunity to go and add value to people who would never normally be able to listen to podcasts like this, for example. And along that journey, every 2 weeks, I wrote in-depth letters to my students showing them what techniques I was using to stay positive, how I was helping the prisoners get off drugs or stopping suicides, or the times that I felt alone or deserted. What would I do? How would I cope? Losing everything, being labeled inauthentic, or being threatened with violence, and all of that stuff. And it's a very unique book. It's changed the life of pretty much everybody that's read it. It's been, it's had testimonials from some of the greatest names in personal growth, from Brian Tracy to John Assaraf to John DeMartini's on the back cover. I mean, Kevin Trudeau. And I'm very, very blessed that it's probably, one of the greatest gifts I had. But because I had 6 months, and this wasn't written after the fact, this was unfolding in real time. It's part journal, part tradecraft, part secret diary, part you couldn't make it up, but it's real. And when I came out, my students really encouraged me to share these letters with the world because they'd learned so much part of my journey. So we published just the letters, not unedited. And it went Amazon #1 in 4 hours. Outsold 3 suppliers on the first day. It's gone on to win multiple awards, and has been called one of the greatest books ever written in personal growth. And I'm very touched, very humbled, and very blessed that it's there.
Inside track. Can they get it anywhere?
Yes. GetPetesBook.com. I always have a whole bunch of books that I set aside. I want to get into as many hands as possible. And I'll be honest, the book itself costs me around $14 when it comes to the printing, manufacturing, the shipping to the warehouse, the storage facilities, the packing, the postage, all of that stuff. It's about $14. Why it sells on Amazon for $24.95. But I really want to give it away to as many people. There's got to be some level of exchange. Otherwise, people don't pay. They don't pay attention. And I'm not going to cover all the costs. But I lose $4 a book if people want it. I'll invest $4 in people. So give me $10 to cover something towards the shipping, and I'll send you a copy at my cost for the rest. So getpetesbook.com, and you can get yourself a copy of the Inside Track delivered. It's also on Audible. That's an amazing product. Again, national acclaim. It's my voice. I wanted to really be the person that gave that information with the level of emotion that at the right places that I wanted people to feel. I hired a top music composer. We created an original music score for it. It's an audible journey to take people through. So that's available as well. So very, very, very happy. Out of all adversity comes an equivalent or greater benefit.
Beautiful. Well said. Instagram, The Real Peter Sage, website, petersage.com, Facebook, The Real Peter Sage, etc. Go check him out. And I've got one last question for you, bro. Straight off the cuff. You ready for this?
Hit me.
I know you are. I want you to imagine now that you are on the world stage, and every sentient being alive has gathered in presence to hear your message to the world right now. Whenever you're ready, take a breath and then share. What is your message to the world right now, Peter?
Understand that the entire reason that you were born sentient was to give your gift. The entire reason that you were created was to be able to find who you really are so that you can help others by being the example and the invitation, not the imposition. And nobody has the right to tell you otherwise. Go live your dream.
Smiling from ear to ear, buddy. Thank you for your authentic, wise, stern. I appreciate the framework here. Thank you for your time. I know you've got a lot on, and I'm really excited for our network to hear more about this. If you have liked this interview, then of course, as you are co-facilitating with the universe, maybe share this with 5, 10, who knows, people, and give them a heads up, and maybe even share it with 2 or 3 closest to you and say, hey, listen to this interview, and let's catch up and have lunch, or spend 2 hours actually talking about it and writing it out, and change our lives to indeed create the life of our dreams. Peter Sage, everybody, thank you so much, buddy.
My absolute pleasure. You're doing incredible work yourself. Keep doing what you're doing. I can see clearly you're giving your gift to the world, and it's impacting many people. So it's been a privilege to be able to leave a tiny little thumbprint on that in some way. Hopefully the audience has got a tremendous amount of benefit. And yeah, I would definitely share this with other people, because you never know who needs to hear the right things at the right time.
Thank you. Until next time, everybody. See you soon.